Thank you for dedicating your time to this crucial conversation. In this modern age, single men owe women nothing. This isn't just an opinion, it's a necessary stance, and a story I encountered on X as I was at this point. It's about a woman lamenting, "My ex stole my childbearing years." Does he? She is talking about a financial debt. Does he owe her money for IVF to ensure she can have a child? This narrative struck a deep chord within me. For many of you, long time, but for the new viewers, allow me to share a pivotal chapter. When my marriage ended, I was 35 years old, and I'd been to prevent any unplanned children. You see, fatherhood was never a part of my life's blueprint. Exploration. I've relocated, I believe, having lived in 8 countries, and I profoundly cherish the sovereignty of my own time, directed living. The primary reason a dog fits into my life is his ability to join me on most adventures, and I have family. Principle is this. In every relationship I entered after the age of 35, my path, and fatherhood was not in my future. And I made this under casual understanding. So, for those informal connections, my goodness, that certainly marks the passage of time. Going back, 18? An average man could still genuinely connect with or over coffee. You could have normal courtships. The dating, because the pervasive influence of social media hadn't yet reshaped expectations and created the entitlement we so often see today, particularly for a man like myself who was invested in his own development. I was in peak physical condition, running was established. You combine that discipline and professional success on a dating profile, and the ladies understood you. Consequently, I had no issues with dating. I was in a vibrant dating environment. But returning to the point, I got the procedure. And when I entered a relationship, I didn't lead with that information. As a matter of fact, I progressed to ensuring pregnancy was not a possibility, and permanent measures had been taken. But I found myself in a relationship, and this is where the lesson directly connects significant relationships. My protocol was unwavering, right from the start, as we contemplated moving. Before that discussion even began, I would state, I am never getting simply not in the cards for me. It is not going to happen. So, if that is important to you, you must walk away. I will not take it personally. If you simply state, this no longer aligns with my life's path, I am moving on for any man to take, because a man's strength is found in his emotional fortitude, not in being overcome by emotion or collapsing into tears. A woman has chosen to walk away. The truly empowered mindset, the healthy frame, is this. He is not a possession, and our journey together has a natural lifespan. My focus is to fully experience our time together. This chapter will likely close, and I will be prepared to move forward with strength and integrity. If you can hold this truth, a more emotionally stable man, but also a far more attractive partner for the women you encounter. And in doing so, you'll spare yourself immense future turmoil, because inevitably, my own journey through the dating landscape, this philosophy served me well most of the time. However, there were exceptions. One incident, in particular, stands out as a powerful lesson, recall, and I was in my upper 30s, putting about a 10-year gap between us. A future with me did not include marriage or children. It was a clear boundary. Her response was, I'm fine with that. And so our journey began. Genuinely positive connection. We maintained our independence. She didn't live with me, as I valued my own space and my own life. Living conveniently close to one another. But it was about a year into this arrangement that the dynamic began to shift. Before I left for work, coffee in hand, with an invitation for, ended into the evenings, when she would offer to just stop over and nice. Now, understand, our physical connection was already consistent, almost every single day, twice a day. Once in the morning, and again in the evening. My initial assumption was, and this was her way of reinforcing our connection. But as this continued, oversight came into focus. We had never once, in our entire relationship, discussed the topic of birth. Personally, I'm not capable of having children due to a snip-snip procedure. And yes, for the record, I had followed up with the doctor. The tests were clear. There were no little swimmers left. Therefore this is why I never initiated the conversation. I operated under the assumption that if she had concerns, she would voice them. A year in, this sudden and dramatic increase in our intimate interactions began. But a deeper, more unsettling question started to form in my mind. Family someday. This was very early in our relationship, and I had immediately, she couldn't possibly think that family would be with me. And yet, another thought surfaced. Began to suspect, with growing certainty, that she had quietly discontinued whatever form of birth control she had been using. She was attempting to create a baby trap, banking on a conversation we'd had much earlier. All hypothetical conversations inevitably come up. The classic, "What would you do?" This exact conversation in many past relationships, and I had navigated it with her as well. I would do the right thing. I would get married. Now, you have to understand, importantly, my entire perspective on these matters has evolved immeasurably since then. But back at that time, of doing the right thing, of trying to provide the stability of a family life, her intention was to create a commitment I never offered. Needless to say, after about 3 or 4 months of this dynamic, those 3 or 4 months, a profound shift occurred, and she began to grow very. She would never state it outright, never admit she was trying to leverage the situation, demanding to know the trajectory of our relationship, and if it possessed, what further destination did you have in mind? Because we had already established the terms. At that foundational discussion for a year and a half, you knew that, it's a situation I couldn't escape, but because she was unable to secure that outcome by that point, the end of it all, when she delivered her ultimatum, stating that if you're not going to, so was simply, yes, okay, that is fine. And this produced 2 results. She was furious, even though it was her sovereign choice to stay. And secondly, I believe, for me, or extract something from me that I was not willing, happens far more often than people realize when men are absolutely clear about their intentions. Some women, I am going to change his mind. If he is with me long enough, he is. He will realize he truly wants to be with me, and I will eventually change his, and he will want to have children with me, marry me, and give me that family life. And then, you are the one at fault for breaking a promise you never made. I will share the story that illuminates this principle perfectly. Absolutely no intention of getting married, because let us be honest, of pursuing marriage or from the very beginning. If they then continue to date you by their own volition, they have no one. Even if they secretly believe they can outwit you, fool you, or create an inescapable situation, they will leave. They will be resentful. They will tell everyone in your circle that sleep soundly at night, like a baby, because you know it was not. My ex stole my childbearing years. Does he owe me anything? To actually steal her to a radiator in a basement. You see, some women, they are strong, empowered, brave, and better than men. They, or emotionally available, they are the embodiment of all that they do not get their way. And in that moment, the entire narrative shifts. The story becomes, he lied to me. I was easily manipulated. I was fooled. The responsibility becomes 100% the man's fault, while he stole her most fertile years. No, of course not. This is the narrative of a woman, begins. Dear Moral Money, I have been in a relationship for just now. I'm going to deconstruct this piece by piece as we go, because I want to capture every teachable moment. If we wait until the end, a crucial insight might be lost. I've been in a... Notice the language. The hope was hers, but the discussion was never had. A lifelong commitment was never made. And after a decade, with her now being 34, imagine if at that pivotal age she had initiated the conversation about their future. In a couple of years, I see us taking the next step. I'd love to get, what is your vision for our future? Now, if the man replies, life, or yes, a future marriage sounds right, and we'll have 3 kids, or whatever you, 25, after you've been dating with intention, sets the entire trajectory. If his actions don't align with those words, if he's still avoidant, you're only 27 years old, with plenty of, because he didn't honor his word. But as we continue through this letter, you get the undeniable feeling that, hey, nation, she writes, he called it off a few months, and incapable of functioning to trying to work out how to put my life back, situation with you. She agreed to write it up, and the story unfolds, in which we lived and had been very much a couple years before this. We decided to buy a flat together, between the 2 of us to get on the property, when they had to figure out how to compromise for the benefit of the respective families should have on their home and their life. After a couple of years, they made the massive commitment of buying property, core principle I teach to anyone who will listen. This is non-negotiable if your goal is true, lasting commitment. Oh, we connected at a bar, we were physically intimate for 2 months, and now I'm in. How dare he? He's evil. No, no, no. You never established the people itiba of a committed partnership, the very thing most men are primarily seeking from the problems, believing they can establish physical intimacy with a man and be together, or they believe for some other reason, perhaps, or feigned, is the ultimate key to securing a man's lifelong commitment. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding of taking the monumental step of moving in together, purchasing a flat, and binding their finances with a mortgage. No point does she claim they had a mutual understanding or an agreement to get married. On the contrary, She reveals they had to negotiate the degree of influence their respective families. Both of them had highly intrusive parents, a clear warning sign for this. Instead, she recounts his words. He tells me he feels at 38 as career ambitions and is simply not ready for marriage and for me. This reveals a critical misalignment of life goals. Now, what is she truly saying? You must read between truth, even when they are not consciously aware of it. Notice what she doesn't claim he changed his mind. She simply states he's not ready for marriage and children. But then she adds, he phrase is the tell. The words has become signify a shift in her own desires during the relationship. Had she said it times always was times a priority for me, then you might have a case to. Her own language is an admission. He maintained his position, while he knows her priorities. Here I am at 34, she writes, my biological clock ticking loudly. Instead, I'm unexpectedly single and emotionally devastated. I'm tipping. Sound sense that he owes me, and I demand that he pay. Now, of payment is for him to finance her IVF treatments. She wants him to pay to of misaligned situationships is the timeline. You are 34, started when you were 24. She had a decade of opportunities to have this discussion, or 30. Yet, she didn't. She allowed the years to drift by, until at 34, she presented her ultimatum. Look, I want, was clear. That's not on my roadmap. He recognized that because it was to walk away and set her free, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was not going to change his mind. He likely concluded, into the dating pool, to let her find the future she now desires. I do not want the role of a father. I do not want to be a husband. And he saw that if he stayed, she was either going to resentment would build until it suffocated our entire connection, or I could choose to let this fish go. And this is just like in the beginning, she affirmed it was fine and knew with fury that I wasn't progressing towards an engagement or this man's principles likely never wavered either. And in my case, she did. He was the one who said, I'm going to do the right thing by you. I'm going to let you go in this situation, allowing you to float to safety, because you are not where I assert that men owe these women nothing. If you have acted with integrity and explained things or lead you down a false path, then your conscience is clear and transparent. This is a scenario I have personally navigated. This very situation has happened to more serious commitment. My long-term goals are to eventually become engaged and personal roadmap. I responded, I respect that completely. We then finished our date and it happened to me, and it can happen to you. The problem arises when a woman thinks, well, maybe, if I can influence him to eventually come around. And when you refuse to compromise you owe these women nothing. Do not lose a single moment of sleep if you have consistently been and could walk away with a clear conscience. She was the one who changed the terms. And now, he wasted my life. No, the hard truth is, you did this to yourself. Because if you had truly forced, absolutely want children, I absolutely want marriage. When you were 26, he might have responded, I am not, would have had the opportunity to find that man. Instead, she says, now I feel I am seeking financial restitution. However, it seems that, legally formalized, I have no recourse. I am not emotionally resilient. You can say how long it would take to find a new partner, or if I ever will at all. Time is running out. I'm now investigating IVF so I can preserve my expensive, and I believe he should pay. Needless to say, he does not agree and rejects of extending my childbearing capabilities, even though he. But that statement is a contradiction, because while she claims here, she said she was shifting, that she was moving into a new phase where it had become, he's not ready for marriage and children, but he knows it has times become asterisk, her own changing agenda. She failed to properly assess the fundamental compatibility of the relationship. It is not his fault. He owes her nothing. And now, if he had truly always known, then this issue should have been resolved long ago. But he never did. And that inaction was your glaring warning, is running out, as the very reason he ended their relationship. He did. He stole my childbearing years. Surely he should have some responsibility for, by his change of heart and his broken promises, of reality, stating, that's a tough situation. I gather they are in the UK, where there is no PP. So beyond the logistics of selling their shared property, he holds no further obligation. The part that requires deep reflection is that she was the one whose expectations for the future evolved, and in doing so, feels she has lost precious years, now holding him accountable for her life choices. Yet at no point in her narrative does she mention an explicit promise of marriage. Was there ever a concrete, verbal commitment from him to build a family with children? In modern relationships, a recurring pattern that echoes a much larger dynamic at play today. Connections, accumulating a relationship history that was never part of their original life plan. Clear, many women consciously embrace casual dating, fully participating in the hookup culture by choice. Simply exploring my options and having fun right now, I'll focus on settling down later. Express a different kind of frustration, a different story, because they desire a casual lifestyle, but because their motivations are entirely different. Eventually marry a man who occupies a higher position on the social and economic ladder than they do, to elevate one's status through partnership. And the reality is, most men eventually partner with someone of a different socio-economic standing, male dating preferences. As a result, these women are often pursuing partners who are, by some metrics, out of their league. Intimacy and companionship to these high-value men, a certain outcome is guaranteed. Commitment of marriage. This is a dating strategy many women employ, a desire, and I suspect the woman in our story operated on a similar belief system, to her desired outcome. And for a while, it seemed to work. She fell in love, and the relationship flourished. But her persistent focus, critical turning point. He concluded, "I am not the man who can give you what you need. I have to leave. And at 38 years old, I can still start a family well into my 50s. If I maintain my success, health, and appeal." Partner who is at a different stage in life. Consider the well-known example of Leonardo, partners with remarkable women, often models and actresses, typically between the ages of 20 and 24. I don't envision myself settling down with marriage and children. My path is different. Before the relationship deepens, before the conversation turns to long-term commitment, he makes a clear decision, when his partners still have a world of opportunity ahead of them. Now, one could argue, isn't that a form of, was the question. I understand this perspective can be infuriating to some, with his truth. The man in our story did the same. This is a principle I've had to apply in my own life. Hence anger, just as this woman is intensely angry with this man. If you have been consistent the entire time, that I do not want, then you are not at fault. Just because your partner hoped to change your mind, or it does not give them the right to assign you the blame for their own choices. Yet, this is a common pattern we see. Stem from a core belief that they can manipulate the game, that they're uniquely clever, and that they're destined to achieve incredible things on their own. But when that narrative inevitably crumbles, suddenly, it's poor me, the helpless and weak figure, preyed upon by these supposedly evil, conniving men, agency or control. It's a perpetual paradox, where these women exist in. It's as if they are both empowered and powerless at the very same moment, because I'm more intelligent, I'm superior. And yet, when the strategy fails, by these malevolent geniuses who somehow outwitted me. This predictable pattern. So, here's the stark reality check, ma'am. You're 34. The clock is ticking. And good, call panic mode. Now, every date she goes on is going to be under immense pressure. What are your intentions for marriage and starting a family, immediately? The urgency is palpable, and many good men who might have been interested had she begun this journey a few years earlier and allowed a relationship she's always dreamed of. But in this scenario, I have a bottle of wine and a collection of cats. Gentlemen, if this kind of real talk resonates with you, I invite you to join. You have the option to make a one-time contribution. Think of it as buying me a cold one, or, if you're ready to, $1 a month, or you can commit to a full year of growth for, or is behind a paywall, which creates a secure space for our incredible community of like-minded men. Therefore, Twitter, with threads where we can post our thoughts and engage in meaningful discussions about madness of the modern world. We also host events like watching classic, underrated, nostalgic television live streams where we enjoy old TV shows and use them as a springboard to talk about the modern Saturdays, and on Sundays we'll catch some football or we'll watch. It's a fantastic way to connect and unwind. So, if you are looking to become part of a genuine brotherhood, have a great time, and you want a private place to be about real-world topics, then I encourage you to come over and check it out. I truly believe you'll be glad you did. There are no hard feelings. You can simply move on. But consider this, for the Rivlisane Divisory Dot, access to an outstanding group of men. That's the offer, and I'll leave it there for you to think about.